Hi and welcome to today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about why it is so hard to come to a universal definition of a dream and why all the dreams you've ever Googled are probably incorrect. And I'm going to be doing this by talking about three really popular dream symbols and sort of like unpacking them on different levels. First up, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I got a new microphone, and I got this because there were some people commenting on my videos and saying that they were having trouble like understanding what I was saying because I live near a highway and I live under a footpath, and every 5 seconds it's like burr, burr, just like over the top of my voice. But hopefully this solves the issue, and I'm really excited for you guys to hear all my beautiful words. Before we get into talking about the dreams, just a really quick disclaimer. I will be discussing mature themes. I will be discussing adult themes such as religion, religious symbols, psychology, and philosophy. And in dream symbol number 2 in particular, I am going to be discussing what nudity can represent in dreams. So if you have particular sensitivities or you're under the age of 18, please be aware and potentially just skip this video. So let's talk about why it's so hard to figure out the meaning of a dream. And to help illustrate this point, we're going to talk about semiotics. And semiotics is the study of how signs and symbols create meaning. So semiotics suggests that symbols convey meaning through multiple dimensions. Dimensions such as text, sound, space, color, even the light and the positioning of a scene. And dreams can be interpreted as symbols, and they work the same way. They aren't flat, they're multi-dimensional signifiers. And not only can meaning be conveyed in different dimensions, it can also be read through different levels. All right, so we now understand the dream is communicating to us through a scene of which is made of multi-dimensions. How do we understand and interpret these dimensions? An interpretation to me exists across a spectrum, but for the purpose of this video, I've condensed it down to just 4 levels. So I'm now going to go through the 4 levels, and I'm going to use the symbol of a tree as an example to demonstrate these. So let's just say you've woken up from a dream about a particular tree. So the first one is the personal meaning, and this is the most individual meaning of which nobody will have the same exact experience and therefore will not have the same exact personal meaning. So this is your individual experiences with these trees. Maybe you grew up and you love gardening and the dream therefore takes on a positive note, or maybe once you fell out of this particular tree and now you associate it with danger. So in a slightly broader context, we now have community meaning. Level 2 is the community meaning, and that means the connections made by your local group. When I say group, this could be family, or it could be the town of which you live in. And for an example, maybe the place that you live in has protected these trees. And when you dream about it from the sense of like a community meaning, the symbol is of identity or heritage. Number 3 is broader still. This is cultural meaning. So this is the wider culture that you are a part of. And this might be like religion, or it might even be like the pop culture that you subscribe to. And this tree might represent, like, if it was a pop culture reference, maybe you saw it in a meme and the tree is sort of like funny. But if it was like a religious sense, maybe it's a religious icon, and everybody who subscribes to that religion would sort of identify it as a similar icon. Number 4 is the collective unconscious, and this is the broadest scope of which we can work with when looking at interpretations, because it's the idea in the theory that there is a certain level of unconsciousness through everyone that is potentially even passed through DNA that stores symbols, irregardless of where we are in the world, irregardless of personal experience and culture. It does not matter. You may have a dream about these symbols just because they are carried within our subconscious. And a really good example of this is the tree of life, which makes its way in so many different cultures and so many different religions, and we aren't 100% sure why. So these 4 levels really do demonstrate the fact that there are so many different interpretations and ways that we can interpret dreams that it's really difficult to come to one universal understanding of what a dream symbol actually means. But moving forwards, I'm going to sort of talk about these three really common dream symbols now, and I'm going to unpack them from a lens of which we kind of pull from all of the levels and all of the dimensions for you to sort of see how you can work with these yourself and maybe like identify some of your own dream symbols. All right, dream symbol number one, oceans and large bodies of water. So water is one of the most common dream symbols. I hear people talking about this like all the time. And in my opinion, it's also one of the most powerful. Large bodies of water like oceans, lakes, or rivers often appear, and the meaning shifts depending on what the water is doing and, of course, how you're interacting with it. So if the water is forming like something really threatening, like a tsunami or something that you feel is going to flood you, that might reflect a sense of being overwhelmed. It could literally mean that your unconscious is overflowing with unintegrated and unidentified stresses that need to be like made aware of and they need to be validated. So that's like a sort of like really negative interpretation of it. But what if it's just like, and this is a dream I've actually had, I was sort of just like standing here and there was this big tidal wave and it came up over me and then it just rained down on me and it was very gentle. That is obviously very different from what we've just discussed. And this could be sort of identified as like, this was calm, this was renewal, this was refreshing. So psychologists like Freud and Jung often interpreted water as a symbol of the unconscious mind. For Jung especially, diving into deep water reflected diving into the hidden layers of the self, the origins of behavior, trauma, and creativity. If one were to dream that the ocean they were in was infested with sharks and other hidden dangers, it might mean that they fear the hidden things that they carry within themselves and believe that they could be dangerous. If a dolphin or a beautiful whale popped up instead, it might mean that the feelings, memories, or sensations you were scared of might really be guides to a higher self and a positive integration. But beyond the personal, water and other bodies of large water carries like a pretty solid universal definition too. It often represents creation, source energy, and the feminine principle. In many traditions, water is where life begins, so it can reflect the side of you governed by what can be considered the feminine, your emotions, your creativity, and the balance between chaos and calm. Okay, quick reminder again, just remember meaning is not fixed. But when water comes up in your dreams, I think you should ask yourself, what is it in my life at the moment that is going unacknowledged? Whether these are deeply repressed things or maybe things that just have been unspoken between maybe you and somebody else. Maybe there's something going on there and your unconsciousness is unhappy about it. These are often the things that we stuff and repress right down about ourselves. And in our dreams, they are given a format to come back and try and start the conversation. So don't try not to be scared. But if you're ready to start that conversation with yourself, using these dreams, unpacking these dreams is a good way to start. All right, dream symbol number two. We're going to get a bit weird with it. Let's talk about dreams about being naked. And this one is kind of funny to talk about, but like, and almost everybody I've talked to about dreams has had like a dream about being naked, but most often, like, people are kind of like stressed about this one. So, just if you have had dreams like this, know that you're not alone. This is like super, super common, but let's talk a bit about what it actually means. So this one is really common, I think, because it taps directly into human vulnerability. Dreams of nakedness can range from anywhere to funny to deeply uncomfortable, and the meaning often depends on the context. Like, for example, if you're naked in a space that's like a classroom with other people around, it might highlight anxiety about being trapped within an environment that leaves you open to being judged. But just remember that the dream isn't about being naked, it's actually about the feeling of nakedness. So pay attention to the kind of feeling it actually brings up, whether it's distress, fear, embarrassment, or it could actually be something positive like liberation. Like, what I mean by liberation is you could have a dream about being naked, but nobody around you seems to notice or even care. And that could suggest you feel exposed, you feel like you should be feeling exposed, yet perhaps less threatened than you imagined. The context of which you feel are important clues to match dreams to our waking life. And Freud often linked nakedness to sexuality and hidden desires, while Jung saw it more broadly as a symbol of authenticity and stripping back of the social masks of which we wear. So on a deeper, more universal level, I think that nudity in dreams often, or depending on your social conditioning really, sort of points towards the tension between liberation and shame. So when you're trying to figure out the meaning to this dream, I think it's important to ask yourself, in what context in real life am I feeling ashamed of my authenticity, ashamed of the person that I am sort of underneath the social mask? All right, so dream symbol number 3, our last one. This is the Ouroboros. And if you don't know what an Ouroboros is, it's the figure of a snake or a reptile, sometimes it's even a dragon, that is making a circle because it's actually eating its own tail. So it goes around in a circle. So I'm actually choosing to do this symbol because it was submitted to me by somebody who wanted me to look at their dreams and sort of help them with an interpretation. And this person gave me permission to read it out. So I've actually got I've got their dream here, and I'm going to read it to you guys. So he was inside an aviary, and he was looking at the floor of the aviary, and he found like a rabbit's hutch. And when he looked inside the hutch, he saw a pale yellow snake and a black snake, and they were positioned together in a circle, each with the other's tail in their mouth, and they were slowly eating each other. He said it seemed pretty counterintuitive, and they just kept eating even though he was staring at them, and it made him feel kind of uncomfortable. But when he woke, he felt that it was like something powerful that he had seen. It's really cool. I love when people send me their dreams. And if you do have like an interesting dream symbol, feel free to put it in the comments and we can sort of like talk about what that might actually mean. But let's just take a moment before we like unpack this to sort of like validate the fact that it is really scary to share dreams, and just to send some appreciation to the person that wanted to allow me to like talk about this online, because this is a really interesting one, and you know, talking about it might help other people to understand their dreams more. So thank you, person, and let's move on. So at first glance, I think in dreams and Ouroboros can be kind of unsettling. And it's almost like something is out of place when you're looking at it. A snake just shouldn't be eating itself. Like in nature, the image clashes with our instinctive expectations. From an evolutionary perspective, survival is the primary drive. So a creature like turning on itself is wrong, even it feels kind of creepy. But that's exactly why the Ouroboros is really powerful. It forces us to pause, confront the paradox, and shift perspectives. Why would a snake embrace its own destruction? A really good way to interpret this is through philosophy and spirituality. The idea that life and consciousness moves in cycles. If death isn't an ending but a return, then the snake isn't destroying itself at all, but actually embracing the eternal cycle of rebirth. And we can actually see this meaning appearing in Egyptian, Greek, Norse, and Hindu traditions. Psychologically speaking, Jung saw the symbol of the Ouroboros as a symbol of the self, an image of wholeness that contains both destruction and renewal. It reflects the unconscious process of integration. When old patterns, belief, or identities fall away, they make space for something new to emerge. In this sense, the Ouroboros isn't just about endings. It's about the necessary breakdowns that allow us to recreate ourselves in fuller and more authentic ways. Looking at it from a deeper, more collective perspective, we can also see it as a shared store of symbols that appear across cultures with no direct contact. It comes from like Egyptian alchemy, Norse mythology, Hindu cosmology, to medieval mysticism. The Ouroboros keeps reappearing as a symbol of eternity, cosmic unity, and the cycle of life and death. The fact that so many cultures arrive at the same image suggests it resonates with something fundamental about the human experience. Maybe the sense that life feels circular in many ways and not linear. So when the Ouroboros comes up in dreams, there's two different ways that I sort of like to approach its meaning. Number one is there a cycle that needs to be let go of? Is there something that keeps repeating, old patterns, old beliefs, like maybe even lifestyle circumstances that you can be made aware of and you can ultimately let go of if it's not serving you? The second way I like to look at why this dream might be coming up for somebody is maybe it serves as a collective reminder. And it's a reminder that unity and cosmic completion only happens with death and destruction. So the bad might be happening. The bad is always happening. But you must be reminded that within the bad is completion. So it ultimately can be seen as a positive thing. But that's not to invalidate the fact that it's a deep symbol and it holds like serious capacity, and it can be really strange and it can be upsetting to sort of be like hit with. So this is really coming up to the end of our video now, and I really enjoyed talking about this. We've gone over the different levels of interpretation of symbols. We've talked about a bit of semiotics, and we've talked about 3 really common dream symbols and like maybe like a deeper meaning that you guys didn't really know about. And if you have had any dreams about like the Ouroboros or the ocean or like being naked in a dream, like please let me know and we can talk about it. And I would love to sort of discuss like what these dreams personally meant for you. So thank you guys for being here and watching this video, and I hope this has been really helpful and sort of like empowering for people to listen to. And I hope this does give you a better understanding of how to interpret your dreams. If you want more videos like this, I do similar topics in literature, philosophy, psychology, just like anything at this point. There's a lot of topics that I cover, but if you like this kind of content, please consider liking and subscribing, and I hope to see you soon.